Committee welcomes Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff today for a hearing on Afghanistan and South Asia.
You on this committee are keenly aware of the complex and volatile security environment our country faces today. Russia continues to invest in a full range of capabilities designed to limit our ability to project power, erode U.S. influence, and undermine NATO's transatlantic alliance. China is focused on limiting our ability to project power as well and weakening our position in the Indo-Pacific region, even as we work to find common ground in confronting North Korea's provocative actions. The international community, as reflected by the two latest unanimous Security Council sanctions resolutions, is focused on the destabilizing threat posed by North Korea and Kim Jong-un's relentless pursuit of nuclear and ballistic missile capabilities. The Defense Department supports fully Secretary Tillerson's efforts to find a diplomatic solution, but remains focused on defense of the United States and our allies per President Trump's orders. In the Middle East, Iran continues to project malign influence across the region. While we continue to make gains against the terrorist enemy in Syria, Iraq, and elsewhere, in Afghanistan we have faced a difficult 16 years. General Nicholson, our NATO and U.S. field commander, with troops from 39 nations, has blunted the terrorist offensive moves in Afghanistan. NATO strikes in support of the improving Afghan security forces and disarray among various enemy groups have caused the Taliban to expend resources, constrain their movements, and limit the Taliban's ability to conduct major offensives.
Secretary Mattis, you talked about the new strategy, the R4+S. Is that a strategy that you also buy into? Right. Is that something you support? The
Absolutely.
R4+? So can you tell me, I understood your description of what regionalizing is, but can you tell me what reconciliation means?
I can. Representative, what it means is that the Taliban decide to stop killing their fellow countrymen and women and sit down, as some of the small groups have, and start working with the Afghan government. They've got grievances, then bring them up through the normal processes that countries have to resolve grievances. But no need for violence, no need to support transnational terrorists.
So is this sort of linear? In other words, do we have to go through each of the R's to get to the S, which is to sustain?
No, it's not. It's a great question. We are going to fight and talk at the same time. Already, some groups have broken with the Taliban. Furthermore, because the Taliban has lost some key leadership, there's internal fighting going on now, which distracts them from working against the Afghan government and against our NATO forces, our Afghan forces. So this is not going to happen in a sequential, linear way. There'll be some of them will peel off early, some will fight to the rugged end. But the bottom line is we will fight and talk at the same time.
So is realign talking about the others, not just, you're not talking about our troops. When you talk about realign, you're talking about realigning like the other terrorist organizations or other groups?
No, ma'am. We are talking on the realigning our forces to the main effort of bringing NATO support and to the Afghan forces that have not had advisors before, and ensuring that the Afghan forces are made more capable to provide for their own defense.
So the reinforced component of R3, I think you said, is that the United States will reinforce by having more troops?
We will bring in more troops to extend the advisors to the other units that the chairman was saying are not right now getting advisors, but it's also Secretary Stoltenberg and myself going to other NATO and partner nations, NATO being the nations there in Europe, partners being ones like Georgia, Australia, and have them pick up more of the advisory duty, align more of their troops to advisor duty as well.
So though we may not have more boots on the ground, so to speak, we do anticipate having more of our advisors or NATO advisors in Afghanistan in the future.
Yes, ma'am. There will be more boots on the ground. I mean, we are reinforcing. It's not to take over the fighting. It's not to supplant or substitute for the Afghan soldiers. It's to make certain that units that never had immediate access to NATO air support, intelligence support, this sort of thing, will now have it, making them more effective at fighting. But we're not taking over the fighting. We're enabling them.
So in your testimony, Mr. Secretary, you spoke a lot about the Taliban and how the basically, lack of a better description, how the Taliban was such, doing everything so bad and was an evil entity. Yet in the testimony of the general, he talks about defeating ISIS and al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and to ensure other terrorist groups are unable to launch attacks. And then he ends with something I think you're talking about when you're talking about reconciliation, and that Secretary Tillerson has recently outlined this entire effort is intended to put pressure on the Taliban and have them understand that they will not win in the battlefield victory, so they will enter an Afghan-led peace process to end the conflict. So is that the ultimate goal, that we will do away with the ISIS and we will do away with al-Qaeda, but the Taliban is viewed almost like our future partner or the partner in peace in Afghanistan?
As you know, ma'am, the Taliban embraced al-Qaeda, supported them, and refused to break with them even after they attacked New York City and Washington, D.C. So we go after the Taliban as providing the structure, so to speak, that other transnational groups have in fact used to conduct international attacks. I mean, you know what al-Qaeda has done, you know what ISIS has done, Haqqani in the area. But the bottom line is we are going to go after al-Qaeda, we're going to go after ISIS, and if the Taliban wants to break with them and stop killing people and rejoin the political process, then we see reconciliation as the way we will end this war.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Briefly, so much of what's been discussed today and the justification for our continued open-ended presence in Afghanistan centers around it, preventing it from being a safe haven for terrorists to launch attacks against us. The issue is that there is a long list of countries around the world who fall under this category of being a physical safe haven. What to speak of the phenomena of the internet now making it so that a physical safe haven is not even required for terrorists to plan and launch an attack on us or on our interests or allies. So my question is a big one, and maybe you can follow up with me, but how do you justify the expenditure, the open-ended presence, this forever war in Afghanistan, given the global threat that we're facing, both physically and electronically? Thank you.